The Puppington family was sitting at the dinner table. Little Timmy Puppington had brought home an A today in math. And Earl Puppington, the boy's father, had been so proud of him that he hung up the test on the fridge with a magnet. Lisa Puppington, the proud homemaking mother of the family, had created the most wonderful meal in celebration. It wasn't often that little Timmy brought home such good grades, as he was usually stuck on C's and D pluses. Their dog, Bobby Puppington, was currently chained outside, as he had been a bad dog last night. The old mutt had been barking the entire evening, and now that the sun was setting, Earl was getting sick of the dog's barking. And yet, he didn't get up to scold the mutt. His boy was simply too important. Gently, the father patted his son's head. "You did great, my boy. I think it's time for your first drink," he said proudly, as he pushed a small shot glass filled with his father's old and very sugary caramel syrup to the boy. Lisa clapped her hands excitedly. "Oh, such a grown-up little man we have here." Smiling and blushing, little Timmy took the shot glass and downed it. He coughed, face turning red almost immediately. His parents laughed wholeheartedly with the boy. The old-timey family peace, however, was suddenly interrupted, as the loud barking of the dog turned to a pained whine. Earl looked up at the strange noise, and the mother too looked concerned, but at least little Timmy didn't notice. "Just one moment, please. I'll go check on the dog," said the father. As he left the table, slowly, he approached the back door leading to the backyard. Still, he was unaware, feeling happy for little Timmy as he descended the small porch, his eyes turning to the chained white dog, and his heart stopped a beat. The mud had been eviscerated. Horror made itself known to Earl as he lost all color in his face. Honey?" he shouted as he turned around, but then he came face to face with a giant man. Face covered by a hockey mask, his white clothes covered in the dog's red gore. A large knife was in the man's hand. He breathed heavily behind his mask. Where did this monster come from? How had he gotten behind him? The killer grabbed the father's throat. He could not call for help anymore. The giant raised his knife, pressing against the father's chest, and light suddenly flooded into the basement. "Jenny!" shouted a shrill voice. Quickly you jumped up on your feet, face flushed. I'm down here." Down the steps to your basement descended none other than Julie Joyful. "I was looking for... What are you doing?" You blinked, hiding the small puppets behind your back. "No, nothing, just playing house." Julie tilted her head questioningly. "Right, playing house." She leaned a bit to her right to get a better look at what you were hiding from her. Quickly you tried to hide the hockey puppet. "Then, who are you holding?" "The father?" Julie blinked. "The father. Yeah, he is a hockey enthusiast. And the knife? He likes cooking?" Julie blinked. Right, you answered. "You were looking for me? What's up?" "Oh, yes, I
I was talking with the others and we had a great idea.
Her facial expression changed to a smile. Good, that's what you were more used to.
We're going to have a slumber party. Big city style.
You blushed hard. You knew what big city style entailed. Not that you ever attended one of these parties.
Are you sure you know what that means? It means we are all sleeping in the living room together and play kissing games.
She said that with so much conviction and fervor that you felt almost inclined to tell her that kissing was the least thing that happened on a big city party. But how did you know? Well, obviously, you were a big city puppet yourself. Genie Gloom was your name. You're a beautiful white cotton puppet with scarlet red hair, a beautiful black mouth, and a pretty blue tongue. Your nose was a slightly darker white color too, and beautiful intricate black symbols covered the pelt around your eyes. Not only were you made out of these rare colors, but you're also made of cotton. That was just as important. In the puppet world, that made you one of the... In the puppet world, in the puppet world, made you the same level as a top model when it came to looks. In fact, the entire Gloom family was known for its wonderful appearance. Most of your family, starting with your great-great-great-grandpa, had their cotton fingers in the entertainment industry. Going from radio host to news anchor for BBC NNN, the big city news network now, and your sister Gretchen Gloom even had a role on a TV show as the main character. This, however, made you the odd one out. You weren't sociable. You liked dark things. And the most you ever managed was getting an advertising photo shoot gig. And to this day, that had been your only role in the business. In fact, your parents were so ashamed of you, they arranged for you to live here, in the small neighborhood of home, so that you wouldn't tarnish the family name by talking about your weird fixation on making little, gory, horrifying stop-motion clay puppet animations with your camera, or your loneliness and boredom to the press. In fact, the only reason you had a lot of funds was so you wouldn't go to the press in the first place and openly admit to this pushing aside of theirs. But that was okay. It allowed you to live a lazy life. Yes, you really lived the gloom part of your name. In the new neighborhood, Julie had been the only one to ever really bother with you, interact with you. You did have a sort of nice relationship with that handsome little painter puppet, of course. Julie was very sociable, active in the community, and very overbearing. Honestly, sometimes you felt as if she wanted you as more than just a friend, but that was simply ridiculous. Not in a small town like this. Actually, she had been so overbearing that she had a spare key to your house. She talked you into that. And that's how she was able to be in your basement right now. You blinked and inhaled sharply. No, you would not shatter her innocence by telling her the stories her sister told you of her big city parties. It was disgusting. And a great explanation as to why and how she got the role as main character for her stupid show. And who else will be there? You asked curiously.
Everyone. Well, I invited everyone in town. Now we see who actually comes.
You blinked and forced a smile. Technically, you didn't say yes yet, but your thoughts instantly wandered to the thought of, what if no one shows up? And so, reluctantly, you said, well, let's get going then. Julie helped you gather your things. Slumber party meant that you'd be needing PJs and spare clothes. Knowing Julie, she already had plenty snacks and food prepared, and so you made your way to her house immediately. But as you sat down in her living room, you realized something. Maybe you should tell her after all. Isn't it a little short notice? I mean, a slumber party? Puppet's gotta make time for that. From the kitchen, Julie peeked her head in.
Oh, you think so? I didn't realize.
You shrugged in response. Maybe puppets would show up after all. This was a small community. Not like anyone really did anything productive here. Time passed. And as time passed, a few neighbors did show up eventually. Frank Frankly, Eddie Dear, and Wally Darling. Though there obviously were a couple of puppets missing. You gently rubbed over Julie's back. She looked a bit sad, probably expecting everyone to show up. Luckily, it seemed you were the only one to notice. The boys were currently talking about the food, discussing if whether or not the cakes and pudding and sweets should be eaten before or after their slumber party games Julie had planned. After all, a big city slumber party was huge, or at least meant to be huge. Do you want to get started? You mumbled quietly towards her.
Yeah, I just think I'm a bit nervous.
It was hard not to roll your eyes. It was going to be more awkward by the second. Even the music that was playing was not what you expected, you thought, wondering if you should take over. Could you even take over? You didn't like interacting with others after all? Sighing, you stood up, walked over to the cakes, Julie quietly walking behind you. Normally these parties had so many people it was just eating whenever someone wanted to, and not just a big feast, and everybody had to attend. And as the boys saw you cut the cake, they all jumped up, excited. But as your knife touched the cake, you mumbled more to yourself, but purposefully loud enough for everyone to hear. Just eat what you want, for God's sake. Don't look at me. Smiling now, everyone looked at each other before spreading out. Eddie and Frank wandered over to the sausage rolls Julie had made, while you remained at the dessert half with Julie and Wally. What a joke. This felt like a goddamn kid's birthday. But whatever. The others had fun, and you could just force it. Wally finally broke the ice by asking Julie a few questions about her recently acquired hobby of pottery. Ugh. God, this was so dry. You grabbed the maple syrup from the counter. Julie, are you okay if I drink this? She blinked confused.
It has a lot of sugar,
she said. I know. That's the point. She nodded, more reluctantly than really intending, and you put the bottle to your lips and began sucking the golden brown liquid. God, it really was sweet. It was revolting, really. Maybe a bit on some bread, sure, but a full-on blast? Impressed, everyone stared at you as you emptied the bottle. Out of breath, you growled as you slammed it back on the table. Your right eye twitched from the sugar.
Are you okay?
You grinned from ear to ear. Of course I am, you laughed. Do you have more? I could totally go for more. The puppets never saw you this excited, and Julie quickly waltzed over to her syrup drawers. Plundering it seemed to be the best option you saw, to bring a little life to the party, and yourself. High on sugar, everyone was now feeling a little more loose. Even Frank had loosened up his bow tie. Okay, everyone, you shouted as you stopped the CD player, while Julie, who obviously had more syrup inside of her than you, dimmed the lights. It's time. Your speech was a little slurred from the sugar rush. Please, everyone, gather around.
Please, everyone, gather around,
said Julie. In the middle of the living room, the entire group was now sitting. A half-empty bottle of strawberry sprinkle soda placed in the middle. Do I have to explain the rules of this game that has a long and deep tradition in big city teen parties? Eddie raised his muscular hand and Frank chuckled. Come on, Eddie, don't be humble. The mailman laughed. I just want to make sure I'm thinking of the right version of this game. Okay then. We have a spinner and a victim. The spinner decides if the victim has to make out with the spinner or do a dare. Proudly, Eddie slapped his chest. I knew it. Frankly, I think this is a fun idea. Though, what about the soda? I do like it carbonated, and it would be a shame if that goes to waste. Everyone now looked at Frank, and you smiled, tilting your head almost upside down. The winner gets to drink. I'm in. I'm in. Hell yeah, let's do this, shouted Wally. The bottle was spun by you first, landing on Eddie. You rubbed your hands excited. Oh, I have just the right dare for you. You giggled evilly. You knew that Eddie was a kind mailman, and very proud of his occupation. So, even to this occasion, he was dressed in his uniform. I want you to wear normal clothes for once, and take those off slowly. Wally laughed out loud, and Julie joined in. Going right for the hard-hitting ones, aren't ya? Giggled the painter. You looked at Wally and smirked. Why, you gotta win somehow, painter. Over and over the bottle was spun. Everyone too focused on topping each other's dares. Though, seeing Eddie in a white tank top and underpants was quite the sight to behold. He was quite the hunk. The sugar rush made everyone not think properly. But you were proud of yourself. You had saved the stupid party. It was your turn again. So far, no one had tapped out. But no one dared to go there. So when the bottle pointed at Wally, you took it up a notch, maybe a little too much. You nipped at the sugar water you had given out in shot glasses, just to increase the amount of sweetness going throughout the group. And it made you a little reckless. You know? All of you are cowards! I'm going to give you the juiciest dare that has been proposed so far. You slammed your fists on the ground. Oh, and I'm not gonna be talking about those joke dares like eat your own doo-doo. Leaning forward, you balance yourself out with your arms. Painter, I do admire you. Wally gave you the grin. He was on sugar rush too, and had trouble sitting still. You can just do your art, and no one cares. You have no parents in your back making fun of you. So, I'm gonna give you something difficult. You raised a hand, just barely catching yourself before falling. You and I are gonna make out in Julie's broom closet for 7 minutes. Got it? The group gasped, but Wally just leapt forward, his hands grasping yours. Well, let's go then. You narrowed your eyes, and you didn't blink until Eddie and Frank had gently pushed the two of you into the closet. The two of you kneeling before each other inside the darkness. It smelled a bit moist and it was quite cramped here. Why did you say yes? You asked curiously. He chuckled seductively. Stop laughing at me, you demanded. You could have resisted a little to be more convincing, but no. You wanted this. Your eyes narrowed to slits. Meanwhile, Wally blushed and giggled. Well, maybe. He exhaled through his mouth. Yes, I do wanted this for a while, in fact. And that's why I'm here, to begin with. It took me a lot of mental preparations to come. I was nervous, but I'm glad you took over. That sugar rush idea was a good idea. Your heart skipped a beat. You're different from the others. That intrigues me. And he took hold of one of her hands, gently kissing its back, making you blush super hard. Oh, he was such a gentleman. Slowly he went up your arm, planting gentle kiss after gentle kiss. His mouth suckling at your neck just a tiny bit before he leaned back, whispering right into your ear. I never kissed a cotton puppet before. He purred. You're so soft. You grinned, pushing yourself against him, pinning him down beneath you. He stared out of breath into your eyes. I'm glad you're into it too. He joked. Of course I am. I'm the one who suggested it. You booped his face before pressing your mouth on his. Wally tasted like the chocolate syrup he'd been drinking all evening. Absolutely delicious. You couldn't keep your tongue out of his mouth. Wally's hands grasped your hips tightly. He wanted to feel as much of you as he could. But for a moment, you retreated your head, making him pull you closer to get you to force you on him. But again, that's when you held up your hand, small key between your fingers. You purred breathlessly, yet swiped it from Julie's drawer earlier. Before raising your long arm and pushing the key inside the lock. Outside, Julie and the others heard the click of the door. Huh. Well, looks like they need more than 7 minutes, said Eddie, with a dumb smile.
Thank you to the people who are supporting me on Ko-fi. You guys are keeping me alive.